In the name of Almighty Allah, the most merciful, the most beneficent. I welcome you, Ms. Aroma Kausar Sahiba, for our first session today. And in this session, we'll be starting with the definition of law. I'd like you to read this definition, please.
Sure, sir. Definition of law. The system of rules which a particular country or community recognizes as regulating the actions of its members and which it may enforce by the imposition of penalties.
That's right. If I pause here, basically, this is a system of rules, or these are the set of rules which are meant for a certain community. So it varies from communities to communities, and it varies from country to country. And this is actually a system, a regulated system, and this regulated system is meant for regulating the actions or affairs of the members of the community or the citizens of the country. So basically, this is a system of rules, and the you see the most important aspect is that it's not only meant for academic purposes, but also it has its penal consequences. That means that if someone is violating the law, he or she is liable for penalties. So this is actually the very basic ingredient of law, that in case of violation of the set of rules, there will be a penalty imposed actually. And here, since we are primarily catering to the definition of corporate law, so let's have a look at the definition given for the corporate law, please.
Definition of corporate law. Corporate law is the body of law governing the rights, relations, and conduct of persons, companies, organizations, and businesses.
If
The
I
term
ask you,
refers
Ms. Aroma, to just pause for a minute, basically, corporate law is again a set of rules or body of law, and primarily this is meant for catering the rights, relations, and the conduct of persons and the companies actually. So it is the companies, organizations, businesses vis-a-vis a person, an individual. So for instance, in this law, we when we talk about the rights of shareholders or any infringement of the rights of shareholders or any suppression by the majority shareholders in a company. So all sorts of relationship of individuals with the company or with the organization or with the business are being dealt with by these set of rules or by these governing rules. So let's move on. Yes, here we go. Yes, please.
The term refers to the legal practice of law relating to corporations or to the theory of corporations.
That's right. So basically, this is a practice of law, that how the law will be implemented. And here in Pakistan, when we talk about the corporate law, we have Companies Act 2017, and underneath this Companies Act, or on the strength of this Companies Act, there are certain rules and regulations framed. For instance, there are different types of companies working in Pakistan. If we talk about listed companies, then we have corporate governance regulations meant for listed companies. If we talk about non-listed companies, then there are, of course, a set of rules and regulations which are specifically meant for non-listed companies. And likewise, we have rules or regulations meant for private limited companies and so on, so forth. Uh, Now, please move on to the next part of this definition, please.
Corporate law, also known as business law or enterprise law or sometimes company law, it thus encompasses the formation, funding, governance, and death of a corporation.
That's right. So basically, this is a very comprehensive piece of legislation. So this is not only meant for the formation of a company, It deals with the registration of a company. It deals with the incorporation of a company, and then how that company will be funded. What will be the mechanism for funding of the company? Whether they can issue a prospectus, whether the company can go for initial public offering. So, what will be the mechanism available under the law for funding the you see the functions or the business of the very company, and moreover how that company will be governed, that is very important. And finally, if it is required that the company or the corporation must be wound up, then for that purpose even the law provides the way out or the mechanism. Please.
A rule defining correct procedure or behavior in an educational institution, sport, club, or class.
That's right. So basically, even I mean, talking about the companies, then of course we have rules to govern the companies, and likewise, if we talk about the educational institutions, we have a specific set of rules given in the prospectus, or there are higher education commissions guidelines which are meant for regulating the conduct of the students at the campus and conduct of the faculty members at the campus, just to make sure that the rights of all stakeholders are being taken care of. So these were the definitions of law, and specifically we have discussed the corporate law, which is basically the part and parcel of our today's discussion. So thank you very much for your participation, Ms. Aroma. I appreciate your precious time and your active participation. Thank you.
No problem, sir. Thank you so much.
In the name of Almighty Allah, the most merciful, the most beneficent, the most benevolent. Welcome to this second session, Ms. Aroma.
Thank you, sir.
And in this session, we will talk about the historical background of companies law, and that is with special perspective of Pakistan. I'd like you to read some of the content material, please.
Independence in 1947, Pakistan adopted the Companies Act 1913 along with its amendments. In 1981, an independent regulatory body named the Corporate Law Authority was formed to regulate the corporate sector.
That's right. So, pre-partition or during the colonial era, we have the Companies Act, and that was of 1913. And under that Companies Act, subsequently we made certain amendment, and the Amendment Act was of in the subsequent years that continued after the partition of subcontinent, and the regulatory authority which was working from 1981 was known as Corporate Law Authority, and that was meant for regulating the corporate.
The Companies Act 1913 and other related acts were repealed and consolidated under the Companies Ordinance 1984.
That's right. Basically, this is the way how law developed. And basically, once if law is promulgated, either it is an ordinance or it is an act element, subsequently keeping in view the pace of time, or in order to cater the changing needs of time, uh, amendments are made in the law. And accordingly, here in Pakistan, though initially we have adopted 1913's Companies Act, but subsequently in the year 1984, we have consolidated all those amendments. And after repealing 1913's Companies Act, we had promulgated 1984 Companies Ordinance. Initially, it was an ordinance, as we know, in the Constitution of Pakistan. For initially for 120 days, an ordinance can be promulgated, which can be extended for a period of another 120 days. And so total period of time is 240 days. That is the lifespan of an ordinance. And if that ordinance is tabled before the parliament or the joint session of the parliament, then of course that is that becomes the law or the act of parliament. So it was of 1984. Yes, please.
In order to enforce this law, the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan (SCCP) was established under the SCCP Act 1997.
As we discussed earlier, that the primary function of enactment or the law is to regulate. And it is not only meant for academic purposes, it has its penal consequences. Someone disobeys the law or violates the law, then the ultimate outcome is that there is a penalty for that violation or for that infringement. Likewise, when Companies Ordinance 1984 was promulgated, in order to regulate the functions of the companies, in order to regulate the conduct of the companies, a regulator was formed. And in the year 1997, under an act which is known as SECP Act 1997, and the regulator is now, of course, Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan. Please.
The SCCP replaced the Corporate Law Authority. SCCP exercises all the powers and functions on behalf of the federal government. In 2017, the Companies Ordinance 1984 was replaced by the Companies Act 2017.
That's right. Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan came into being under Securities and Exchange Commission Act 1997. Since this is a federal statute, it is meant for the whole of Pakistan. This is why under this enactment, the SACP is meant for regulating the functions of the companies within the country. And of course, at present, this 1984 Companies Ordinance is replaced by Companies Act 2017. And this Companies Act 2017 is now in vogue, or this is the law which. Now, the next aspect of this discussion today is that to talk about the application of law. Yes, would you like to read some of the content?
Yes, sir. Application of law. The Companies Act 2017 applies to the whole of Pakistan. It is a federal law. It has 515 sections and 8 schedules.
That's right. So, like Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan Act 1997 is a federal law. Likewise, Companies Act 2017 is a federal law. It is meant for the whole of the country. It has 515 sections and 8 schedules. These 8 schedules are appended with the main enactment, and that is a part and parcel.
The Act also provides powers to the provincial government for non-trading corporations confined to a single province if license is issued by that provincial government. The powers in relation to the companies which are not trading corporations and the objects of which are confined to a single province will be exercised by minister in charge of the provincial government. A non-trading corporation extending its business activities beyond the limits of the province shall be liable to a penalty of level 3 or may be wound up.
That's right. You see, as we discussed, that the purpose of law is to regulate, and if there is any violation of those that law or the regulations, then of course there is a penalty. Likewise, if there is a company which is incorporated for a certain province, and if that is found that that company is conducting its business functions outside that province for which it was initially incorporated, then there are standard scale of penalties introduced. And we have three scales of penalties: level one, level two, and level three. So, level three penalty can be imposed on a company which is initially meant for one province, and it is found that that company is working or functioning beyond the territorial jurisdiction of that.
The provisions of this Act apply notwithstanding any provision contained in memorandum, articles, agreement, or resolution. All provisions which are against the Companies Act 2017 shall be void.
Right. You see, this is really important to know that when we go for the incorporation of a company, the companies or the promoters of the companies, they draft the articles of association and memorandum of association. And these are the two primary documents which govern or which formulate the basics for working of a company, and these two documents are submitted to the Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan for the incorporation of a company. Now, the law actually, which is Companies Act 2017, that will hold the field in spite of the fact that there are certain provisions given in articles or memorandum of an association. Those will be subservient to the Companies Act 2017. And if there is something which is in violation of Companies Act 2017, that will be considered as void or nullity in the eye of law. With these words, I appreciate your participation and thank you very much indeed.